Reporting from Arkham Asylum, this is Gotham Rogues. In this video we count down the 5 greatest Captain Cold stories ever told. This list is going to be a bit different from the usual ones, as it's only going to include stories from the 21st century, nothing from the 20th century, and you know I love older comics. But the thing with Captain Cold is, he used to be a pretty corny character. He was usually just motivated by some silly crush on a random woman, always a celebrity of some kind, and would then try some cheap and dishonest tricks to win their hearts. He did change a bit after the Crisis soft reboot in the 1980s, but old Lenny Snart didn't really become a good character until Geoff Johns began his run on the Flash in 2000, and this list is going to feature a lot of John stories. Anyway, let's get on with it, and of course as usual this is just my personal opinions, so feel free to write your own favorites in the comments. Number 5. Flashpoint, Citizen Cold. A 3-issue miniseries written and penciled by Scott Collins. It was published in 2011. It's a spin-off of the big Flashpoint event of that year, and is set in a different timeline featuring alternate versions of the DC characters. In this timeline, Leonard Snart is a former criminal hiding under the guise of Citizen Cold, the hero of Central City. That's right, there is no Flash. Instead, it's Cold who's the city's protector. His motivations aren't entirely noble though, as Snart takes advantage of all the fame and admiration that comes with being a superhero. People love him, and he's being paid hefty sums of money to appear at various events, something which has made Snart rich. However, being a rogue at heart, Cold uses incredibly harsh methods in his crime fighting, often killing off the villains he faces. Eventually, a group of his rogues gallery, the other usual Flash villains, decides to get back at Citizen Cold. Discovering his secret identity, they kidnap Snart's sister, Lisa, who's not the Golden Glider in this timeline, and threaten to kill her. It's now up to the so-called hero of Central City to rescue her, without blowing his cover as an actual criminal himself. Captain Cold is usually portrayed as a very sympathetic character. He's morally grey and walks that fine line between a villain and a hero. This story shows us what it would be like if Snart actually crossed that line and became a full-on hero. However, instead of giving us a noble knight in shining armor, Cold seems to get even worse when entering the superhero biz. He lies and cheats people, taking advantage of their good faith, and of course let's not forget his reckless killing. I find this very interesting actually. Despite how heroic Snart can sometimes be, he isn't a hero, and when now trying to be one, he just perverts what a hero is supposed to be. Number 4. Final Crisis, Rogue's Revenge. Another 3-issue miniseries, this one was published in 2008, and is a spin-off of that year's big event, Final Crisis. It was written by Geoff Johns and penciled by Scott Collins. Previously, Inertia, an evil counterpart of Bart Allen, aka Impulse, aka the 4th Flash, tricked Captain Cold and the Rogues into killing Bart. One of the big rules Cold has established for himself and his fellow Rogues is to never kill a superhero, or cape as he refers to them. Doing so will bring on more heat than a lap dance by Poison Ivy. Every single member of the superhero community will come down hard on your ass, and that is something that Snart wants to avoid. But now here they are, the Rogues, with Bart Allen's blood on their hands. Cold sees no other option but for them to retire and lay low for the rest of their lives. But first they're going to get revenge on Inertia, who brought them into this mess in the first place. Meanwhile, Libra, the new leader of the Secret Society, a gathering of DC's biggest villains, hounds the Rogues in a desperate attempt at recruiting them, but the Rogues don't play well with others. Nowadays, Captain Cold is perhaps most well known as the leader of the Rogues, a group of Flash villains excluding Reverse Flash and Gorilla Grodd, as opposed to being a solo villain, so naturally I had to include a story that emphasizes his role as commander of this group. There's been plenty of great ones since Geoff Johns began writing The Flash, but out of all of them I'd say Rogue's Revenge is my favorite. Here we see the Rogues at their lowest, hounded and on the run, facing multiple enemies. They're at their last straw, but who's going to make sure that they come out of it alive? Why, Captain Cold of course. Weather Wizard is too arrogant to pull that off, Heatwave is too unhinged, Trickster is too wild, and Mirror Master, as much as I love the guy, this isn't quite clever enough. No, the Rogues has to have their dear captain in order to properly function. Besides showcasing Snart's brilliant leadership, this story also features a fascinating moment when Cold confronts his old dad, the man who used to abuse both Leonard and his sister Lisa when they were kids. It's not a happy reunion. Number 3. Ignition. A 6-part arc published across the Flash 201 to 206 in 2003, it was written by Geoff Johns and penciled by Alberto Dose. In the previous arc, Blitz, which I talked about in my Reverse Flash video, Zoom, the second Reverse Flash, attacked Wally West by striking at his family. This was only possible because his identity as a Flash was public knowledge. So in order for something like that to never happen again, he made a deal with the Spectre. At Wally's behest, the Spectre erased the knowledge of his identity as a Flash from everyone's minds, and I mean everyone's, including Wally's own. This story begins with a powerless Wally West who's forgotten he was the Flash, and a Keystone without its hero. Things are now worse than ever, and without a Scarlet Speedster to contend with, the villains of Keystone grow more daring each day. Like for example Captain Cold, who's gone on a mad crime spree and murdered several cops. Or wait, it isn't actually Captain Cold, it's a new dangerous and insane supercriminal who's put the frame on Cold. Upon learning of this, Snart immediately sets out to clear his own name, but he needs the missing Flash in order to pull it off. This is another story that greatly explores the rules and moral values that Leonard Snart holds. Captain Cold would never go on such a brazen crime spree, and he would certainly never murder cops. That would be almost as bad as killing a Cape. Some people might look at him as a silly small-time loser crook with a goofy outfit, but Snart is actually just clever. He knows his own limitations and boundaries. He understands that he isn't Darkseid, he's just a rogue in Central City. A thug with a cold gun more or less, albeit a smart thug. This story also shows us Leonard's human side, as while amnesic about his Flash identity, Wally frequents a diner during his lunch hour, where he's befriended another of the regular customers. Together they talk about their problems and try to help each other out, and the funny thing is, this other regular customer turns out to be Leonard Snart. Neither of them recognize each other due to the Spectre's mind wipe. So somewhere in some alternate reality perhaps, these two could actually have been real friends. Number 2. Wonderland. Another 6-parter, this one was published across the Flash 164 to 169 in 2000. It's the first Flash story of the Geoff Johns run, and the penciler was Angel Unzueta. In it, the Flash suddenly wakes up one day in a bizarre alternate reality where he's powerless and nobody knows who the Flash is again. But that's not all. No Flash has ever existed in this universe, neither Jay nor Barry, and it's a cold, dark world run by a tyrannical police force. This same police force captures Wally and throws him in jail for a crime he didn't commit. And without his powers, there's no way for him to escape. Everything seems hopeless. That is until he's suddenly sprung by none other than Captain Cold. Snart is the only other person in this world who's normal and remembers the Flash. So together these two unlikely allies sets out to find a way out of this twisted mirror universe. So this is it, the first Geoff Johns Flash story, and perhaps more relevant to this video, his first Captain Cold story. As I said in the beginning of the video, Snart used to be a pretty lame character, almost a B-list villain, but this story completely turned Cold on his head, transforming him into a total badass. Of course the comic acts as if he's always been that way, which is interesting. With the release of this one arc in the first year of the 21st century, the entire history of Snart had been rewritten. Gone was the silly Billy goofball who fell in love with movie stars, and in his place stood a morally grey ass-kicking thief. How appropriate too to have this new and improved Cold team up with the hero Flash in his introduction. It's a blast to see these two reluctantly working together and almost develop a sort of respect for each other. And of course, it's an essential Captain Cold story, perhaps the most important one of them all. But, as important as number 2 was, there's one Cold story that still beats it. Number 1. Absolute Zero. A one-shot, this one was published in the Flash 182 in 2002. The writer was of course Geoff Johns, and the penciler was Scott Collins. A few years earlier, Snart's sister Lisa, who was a rogue herself going by the name Golden Glider, was murdered by her own boyfriend, a small-time loser rogue called Chill Blaine. He killed her with one of Lenny's own cold guns, which Lisa had given to him to use in their capers. Snart is now out for cold vengeance. However, the double-crossing Chill Blaine proves a hard target, as he's joined a powerful Keystone mob. But Leonard doesn't care. He's going to get his revenge, no matter what. Meanwhile, we're also shown flashbacks to Cold's past, including his rough childhood with a violent and alcoholic father, and his early ventures into crime in Central City, and eventual first encounter with the Flash. Yeah, if you read any Captain Cold comics, you must have known that this one would top the list. I don't see how any other story could rival Absolute Zero as the definitive Leonard Snart tale. While Wonderland introduced a modern badass Cold, it's this one that truly defined him and fully fleshed out his moral code. Like for instance, it's this story that established the fact that Snart isn't really a killer, unless it's a kill or be killed situation, or of course, if it's cold vengeance. Snart doesn't enjoy killing and preferably avoids it, but when a scumbag murders his baby sister, he'll pursue that son of a bitch to the ends of the earth and gun him down mercilessly. This makes Lenny such an interesting and I think relatable character. I'm pretty sure most of us would react more like Snart than say Batman, who refuses to kill no matter what, even if the Joker broke into Wayne Manor and raped Alfred to death with a chainsaw. I find that to be crazy and unrelatable, while Lenny's drive to murder the hell out of Jill Blaine to be very understandable. Besides all of that, this story was also the first to actually give Cold an origin, fleshing the character's background out. We now understood why he embarked upon a life of crime in the first place. If you're only going to read one comic with old Lenny Snart, you better make it this one. So there you have it. Those are the top 5 greatest Captain Cold stories ever told, in my opinion. 4 out of 5 belongs to Geoff Johns. I guess nobody quite writes old Cold like he does. I've seen him get a lot of flack lately from fans, people saying he's a terrible writer. I'm not exactly sure what that's all about. Maybe it's got something to do with the poor management of the DC movies. But there's no denying that the guy's done a lot of great stuff for the comics, especially when it comes to the DC rogues. Anyway, as always, remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.